back to another edition of Words with Dani. I'm Emily Moyer from Off Planet Radio, and with me is Dani Katz of DaniKatz.com. Hello.
Hello.
And we were really jazzed by the last episode, so we decided that for now we're going to do more frequent episodes. So we are back just a week later. Thank you for all the wonderful responses, both those that agreed and didn't disagree. It was a generally awesome kind of back and forth in the comment section and conversation and whatnot, so we appreciate that. And here we are again, and Dani had a special topic she requested I discuss with her, which is not generally my sort of thing that I talk about, but I understand why someone who doesn't give any shits about a certain thing might be a better person to talk about it with than somebody who does. So for the reason of I don't have any investment. So we're going to talk a little bit about politics in a way that I don't usually tonight. And Dani, what you got for us?
Yeah. So like you, it's not a conversation that I generally find myself in. I'm not really very invested. What inspired it was a conversation with my with an editor who I'm working on a magazine piece with. We were talking about, whoever's announcing their candidacies for the 2020 election and what happened last year. And I'm just noticing how many people are under this like crazy delusion that we're enslaved to a two-party system. Mm-hmm. And that to have written in another candidate that wasn't Hillary was to vote for Donald Trump. And everyone, it's so knee-jerk with this. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, well, I couldn't vote for who I really wanted to vote for because I didn't want that guy to win. And mm-hmm. So the whole system has become so perved and distorted where people aren't actually voting for who they really believe in and who they want. They're voting against who they hate the most. Mm-hmm. And the whole thing is just so out of integrity and disgusting. So, and this came up because, full disclosure, I wrote in Bernie and everyone's like, well, you just basically voted for Trump. And I was like, no, I didn't. I voted for who I wanted and who I cared about. And I also don't have to hate myself for voting for Hillary, who I didn't care about at all. So my thought was, now that all these people are throwing their names into the hat, and I know we're going to talk about Tulsi, is Bernie. And there's this, like, is he going to run? Is he not going to run? And I am wanting to get to his campaign people. I think that he is really wise to run as an independent and to pull himself away from the Democratic Party, but to make this like a forward-facing campaign strategy to liberate the whole country from the tyranny of this fetid, rotting, and broken two-party system. I think it would be such a strong move. I feel like he's popular enough at this point. His name is large enough. The Democrats like sold him down the river in the grossest of ways. So at this point, if he does go for the Democratic nomination, he's like a pussy and he himself is out of integrity. And I think it would be such a great way to jettison the whole country forward, to like quantum leap us out of this like lame binary cage that so many people are blinded by.
So couple of spot things here. Let's start with, you're absolutely right about this enslavement to the two-party system. Full disclosure here, guys. Like, I completely do not believe in government at all. I'm completely a voluntarist. I think anybody who votes for anyone is insane, and that government is a religion, and that at this point is more manipulative than the than the other kinds of dogmatic religions we're used to dealing with. And so for me, I am a longtime non-voter. I have no plans to ever vote again. I don't need a boss of me, and right, I don't need a boss of me. And I am, but I live in this world with people who still believe this stuff. And so I have thoughts and things to say and whatnot. And just as I was getting ready to do this show, my dad came in and was chatting with me while I was putting my face on. And, and, he was like, so what are you and Dani going to talk about? And, my dad knows Dani because of gymnastics from many, many years ago. So what are you guys going to talk about? And so I told him, and he said exactly that. He said, well, he thinks you're slightly less insane than me because you still vote and you still think that I told him.
Hold up. That was an exception. I hadn't voted in many elections.
I told him, I don't think you vote, but that you still sort of think that at this point, whether you want government or not is not the issue. You think it's not going anywhere. And I told him, I don't necessarily either, but I'm not participating, So He thinks you're slightly more sane than I am. But he said the same thing. He was like, he thinks that it's people like me that gave us a situation like with Trump. And I was like, I don't like Trump either. You know, I guess it's not like, I don't think Trump is better. I think that like some of the things that happen because we have Trump are maybe better than certain things that would have happened had we had Hillary, but I don't like any of these people. But I just don't like the whole, you know, concept of giving your power away by voting to have a boss of you, right? Like, and so, but he was like, well, it's just like back when George, you know, W. Bush won, it's because of Ralph Nader. It's Ralph Nader's fault. So
see that, that.
Right. He said, so I told him what your idea was, and he's like, well, that's just work, you know, like he, you know, and he is so stuck in this lesser, he was so that I believe in voting for the lesser of two evils. And I'm just like, we're going to be stuck in the same, we're going to be in the same place in 50 years and 100 years and 250 years if people keep doing that. So I agree with you that like, if there's going to be a political system and a governmental system, and for this, at this point, it seems that for the foreseeable future, it is, then like, yeah, you know, the breaking the two-party tyranny would seem like some sort of step in the right direction, just so that, you know, if people first realize that they have options, then maybe one day they'll realize that one of those options is none of this bullshit.
Right, but it's like baby steps. And baby steps. I mean, on some level, I completely agree with you. I do not want a boss of me. And like, we know the sort of mean level of consciousness at which most Americans are operating. Mm-hmm. And I don't think people could handle, and I mean, I know that people couldn't handle anarchy. They can barely handle like just having a conversation or letting someone in front of them in traffic without taking it personally and having a full-fledged freak out. What I like about Bernie, like, I'm certainly not a socialist, but I like that he's attuned to getting us out of this like corporate oligarchy problem that we're in. Like that, it's just like steps in the right direction. But I'm noticing when it comes to the two-party system, how it's such a knee-jerk thing. Like people, like really smart, open-minded people, they'll just automatically go to like, oh, well, then Trump will win again. And it's like, right. That is a program that everyone wants you to think. Or I posted on Facebook, and I just want to acknowledge it grosses me out every time I talk about posting on Facebook, but this is 2019. But I posted on Facebook when I had the idea last week and I had a bug up my ass about this, like, hey, who can put me in touch with Bernie? And there was a little bit of a thread about it. And I said something like the Dems are criminals. And then my godmother, Judith, who you've commented on.
I love Judith.
Before, like, I love her.
She's insane, but I love her. Mm-hmm.
Totally. Mm-hmm. So her response was like, well, if the Dems are criminals, then the Republicans are psychopaths. And it's like, can we just have a conversation about one or the other without having to bring the other in? Like, I'm talking about how the Democrats stole the nomination.
My dad. We should hook Judith and my dad up, because he can't. I'm like, okay, that's an issue, but this is a separate issue. Let's talk. Like, we're having the same conversation about our house, right? Like, our house is a mess. We need to do something about it. I'm worried about cleaning out a middle bedroom to make more room. And he doesn't even want to think about that until I put away 2 boxes from the living room. I'm like, all right, I'll put away the 2 boxes, but that's a separate issue from the middle room. But it's right. Like he wants to mix everything like this thing and make everything about everything else.
It's so tangled, and people don't understand, like, it doesn't have to be tangled. You could just open your fingers and we can be having a completely different conversation. It doesn't have to be like that. Right. So I really am wanting people to open their minds. And it was interesting because I was hanging out with my friend when I had this idea, and he's open-minded, but he's not the way we are. He's a little bit more in the construct. But he's really, really smart. So I had told him this idea, and he was like, well, then Trump will win again. And I'm like, that's a program right there. You don't know that. We don't have that. And I watched him open his mind and like feel into, oh, you're right, it is. And then like we were maybe had 30 seconds of it, and then the program came back in again. But it was interesting to just study, like, oh, there was an opening. Like there was a little bit of space there. And I think the key is to not make it like, oh, well, I'll just run as an independent, as though like he's conceding something, and make it like a strong power move of like, this is the way to do it. Fuck these two parties.
So this is, here's my thought. So Bernie Sanders is a tool. Okay. So Bernie, like I'm surprised you voted for him. My problem, I have a lot of problem with Bernie Sanders. First of all, collectivism, belief in government, all that kind of, like that kind of stuff. I'm not into it.
I mean, belief in government means you're not going to vote for anyone ever.
Right. I'm not going to vote for anyone ever.
Right.
But like, what I'm saying about him is he believes that government is the answer to everything.
Okay. Well, right. He's a politician.
Right. But he, and I'd say, like, if you really look into his history, like his history indicates him to be closer to a communist, which I think he plays being a socialist.
Right.
Right. But he's playing both roles because truthfully, he's just as bought and sold as everyone else, because when it became clear that the primary had been stolen from him,
right,
instead of saying this is bullshit,
right,
and suing or running as an independent, because he had a lot of momentum, he not only didn't do either of those things, but he then turned around and supported the person who stole the election from him. So this is not a moral person that you want leading any cause.
So this brings me back to last week's conversation that you and I had, our episode 6, which I've been thinking about a lot, and I don't claim to have any answers, but we've been talking about like Tim Pool and Dave Rubin and people who probably know more truth than they're letting on to,
yes,
but aren't showing up with full-fledged integrity. And I had said, like, well, maybe that's why they're successful. Like, and I'm not lobbying for that, because obviously, like, you and I are rocking it differently. And, maybe by staying in the game, he is a politician. Like, there is politicking is its own thing. And I am as grossed out by it as you are, but I'm wondering if it isn't a way to stay in the game to affect
he had an opportunity to, like, expose the game, like when those WikiLeaks
him.
Right, they might still.
Correct.
Right. Okay. So at that moment when if they had murdered him, then everybody would know that. Right. Everyone would be okay. So that was actually his safest moment there, because everybody was like, "What the fuck with the WikiLeaks?" Right.
Right.
The thing with the WikiLeaks, and this goes for the Pizzagate pay shit and for this stuff, right, is that nobody ever said those weren't their emails. They all said you shouldn't pay attention to them because they were stolen. But nobody ever said, those are not my emails. Those are forged. No one said that. So those are the emails, right?
Right.
So he had that moment to really, at that moment he had so much momentum. He could have switched to a third-party run right then at that moment. Every single person who was behind him and was pissed off, because there was a lot of mad people about what happened at the convention and all that kind of stuff and the things that happened at the state conventions. It would have been a very interesting race. Whether he would have won or not, it would have shaken everything up. That was his moment. That has passed. If there is going to be, these idiots like Jordan Sheraton and who used to work for the Young Turks and now has his own thing, who seems like a very nice person, but these idiots like Jordan Sheraton and Jimmy Dore, Jimmy Dore is hysterical. His analysis of stuff is right on. His solutions I don't agree with, because they're also for more collectivism, more government, all that kind of crap.
Right.
But he's right on about the Russia shit and stuff like that. Like, he's right on about that. These stupid idiots who still think Bernie Sanders is a good idea after the way he handled that, I don't understand. Like, these people, like Jimmy Dore does not seem like a weak-minded person to me. So I don't understand why he wants to put all of his support and whatever behind someone who at that moment where they had all the momentum in the world and could have really done something, was like, I'm just going to support the person who just stole the election from me.
I feel you. It was a super weak, gross, pussy move, but who else is willing to tackle the corporation?
So I think he, and I know Bernie has a lot of name recognition, right? So he's in some ways the logical person to do that. He's not going to. Like, he maybe it doesn't have quite the level of corrupt. He's like not quite as corrupt as the rest of the Democrats. But I mean, we're still talking about a person with, who owns 3 homes and who has a nice life, even though he says he believes in communism. I don't see him giving his extra money away. Right. So,
right.
Maybe, I think that, a person who might be a better person for people to put their energy behind, because she doesn't seem so far, there hasn't really been any. The biggest problem about her is that when she was in her 20s, because her dad was a religious and a pastor, she said she had a problem with gay marriage, and she's changed her stance on that.
Is this Tulsi?
Tulsi Gabbard, right? To me,
oh, go ahead.
To me, she is. So I don't think that's really a problem. The corporate media smears her as much as they smear. You know, they don't want her. Right?
Sure.
She's anti-war. She's anti-corporation.
Is she anti-corporation or she's just anti-pharmaceutical? I sniffed around a little. She seems to be focusing on pharmaceutical companies and then free healthcare. I don't want healthcare for a bunch of like fat alcoholics
I'm not saying she's good. I'm saying she doesn't seem to be corrupt. Right? So at this point, there is nobody out there who has all the right ideas. Right? Like the closest anyone ever came to having all the right ideas was like on a certain level Ron Paul and a certain level Ralph Nader, right? Like they came closer to having like ideals that, you know, I'm not saying her ideas are good, but she's an attractive person. She's well-spoken. She's a veteran, right? She doesn't have a bad voting record during the period. She's been in Congress for a good amount of time now.
Yeah.
She doesn't have a bad voting record. There hasn't been any major scandals or corruptions or whatever. So if we're talking about like trying to make a clean break from a very corrupt system, right? She seems to me to be a better candidate. Also, she's not 80 years old. So she could lead a movement that builds over time.
I hear what you're saying, and I dig her, and I have been tracking her. At this point in the game, I think Bernie has more name recognition. More people were devoted, and more people are carrying their devotion over. It was just a matter of momentum and like what's more realistic. And I get that this whole thing is a reach, but it's also the Democratic Party is such a shit show right now. If there ever was a moment, it wasn't as much of a mess 2 years ago as it is now. It wasn't nearly as divided. It'd be a perfect moment for someone to go rogue and call them out. And I think he has.
Sure. I mean, I think the better move, if again, I mean, to me, this is all on a certain level. The discussion isn't a waste of time, but the idea, right? If the best thing for him to do would be to pull out of that system and say that the two-party system is tyranny.
Yes.
And for him to be supportive of somebody like a Tulsi Gabbard and push her forward. Right?
But is she going to take the Democratic nomination, or are you saying then she goes independent?
She goes independent with his backing, right? Like he leads a movement that pushes. So it doesn't I'm not fixated on her, right? But she's like, of the, what are there, like 40 of them now? She's the only one that doesn't make me throw up in my mouth a little bit.
No, I get it. But I was on her site today, and it's not, there are like 5,000 great photo ops of her and this really cool one of her surfing, but there aren't a lot of policy delineations like at all. So I get that she's a veteran. I get that she's alleging to speak out against pharmaceuticals, but it's all very murky as far as what she's really for, what her plans are. Like,
I guess I'm not following anymore, but during the period of time that I took a liking to her was when she went to Syria and she met with Assad and she met with the people of Syria and some of the other politicians in Syria. And she came back and said, Assad is not our enemy, and this is not what we should be doing.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, that was a badass move for sure.
Yeah.
I think when I was a little fuzzy on her was when I saw her on Rogan, and I'm like, why is he, like going back to that, like if he's so pro Tulsi, then like how is this bad?
Right. So I was surprised that she showed up there. You know what I mean? And 100% disclosure. I think she's, like there's not going to be options that aren't mind-controlled puppets. Right.
If she's a veteran, she's willing to fight for this country.
Right.
And
she's a mind control. Some people, some veterans go and they come back and they see why war is a bad idea. Right. But there's not this is the problem, is that anybody who rises to any level of prominence is either already a mind controlled puppet or gives in to becoming one. And if they don't, then I have two names for you: Cynthia McKinney and Dennis Kucinich. Right.
Right.
That's what happens. So
you can't ride that game all the way to the finish line without getting really dirty at some point. At least that's how it has been in the past. I mean, she's really pushing her SJW credentials on her site hardcore.
Really?
Oh my God. It was super cringy that she's like mixed race and indigenous and woman. And it was just like, can we talk about policy?
I didn't know that.
What you're going to do?
No, I don't, there's not good options, right? Like that's part of why this, to me, like there's no, and this goes with all the other stuff too. I think Jordan Peterson is controlled. I think like anybody who has a level of prominence where they're getting a lot of attention for more than just a few minutes, because sometimes you can't control what happens spontaneously, right? But all these people, if you're afraid a rebellious movement is coming, right? Then you push forward a slightly rebellious movement to sort of steam valve the more rebellious one that's coming, right? And I'm going to do a special shortly with Robert about Jordan Peterson. There's a lot of problems with Jordan Peterson.
Let me, and I don't know what you guys are going to talk about. Personally, from my examination of Peterson, I don't see him so much as programmed as just not that smart. I see him as he's not an original thinker. He's operating from a pretty contracted blue level of consciousness from spiral dynamics. And he's taken that level of consciousness to the outermost edges of the universe, which has allowed him to tap into some truths, but he's very limited in the amount of truths he can deal. Like, it's just all kind of the same thing. And it's still with that like divisive, I'm right, you're wrong.
So
like,
everything you say
that doesn't work.
Everything you say is right, but there's some things.
Can we just end the conversation now then?
Everything you say is right, and he's got some interesting things in his background, and there's been some interesting analysis done of like what might be the point of what he's doing that leads to some interesting places. Like if you see it's a way of stretching people out really far so that they think they've considered a new idea, and then wrapping them back in ultimately to the left. And it's kind of, it's going to take us the whole show to kind of do this.
Okay, I'm excited to see what you guys do with it.
You know what I mean? So like, it's just kind of like, for example, what Alex Jones did with all of his, because he's been doing the conspiracy thing forever. He doesn't talk about conspiracies anymore. Now he's just a Trump person, right? He took all of these people and like got them to be part of what they thought was a truth movement. He seemed almost anarchist, almost libertarian or anarchist at a certain point. And ultimately, at the end of the day, when it counted, he wrapped all of those people back into voting for the Republican Party and for Donald Trump. And ultimately, I think that's what be going on here with Jordan Peterson. And of course, there's the thing with him being from McGill University. But that doesn't mean you're exactly right. He has tapped, because of what everything you just said, he has tapped into some important truths. They're not interesting or unique ideas. We're just at this really, really sad point in human history where common sense has become controversial.
Exactly.
And so, it makes him see, it's like he's an intellectual of common sense, which does, right? It doesn't make, it's
nothing so dazzling, and he doesn't come up with anything new. It's like the same thing over and over.
But I mean, you're in a sad place in society when a revolutionary idea is to clean your room and pull your pants up.
But this is where we're at.
Yes, totally.
And that's why, like, I hear what you're saying. Look, and every politician is a politician. They're shifty. They're in the pockets. They compromise. They're for a construct and devoted to a construct that neither you or I believe in. And the reality is we still live in this country. Like, we're still part of it. And we have to get out from under corporate control. Like, that has to happen. And he's the only one I've seen who has the balls to say it and seems to be devoted to doing it. And I think it helps that he's so old, because he might take more risks than Tulsi would, who's more invested in living and breeding.
And having a long political career. Right.
Yeah, he could just do some really wild things and go out with a bang and I guess help us.
The only way, I mean, like I said, I can't get behind any of this, but the only way I could say, you know what, okay, that's a good idea. Like, if he was going to do it, the way he would have to become into integrity, if he was going to lead a movement that was about trying to regain some integrity.
Yeah, wait, cancel Claire, not trying to, regaining.
Okay, is to come out and say, I made a mistake.
Yes.
When I didn't fight back, when I didn't, either fight back and sue or choose to run as independent when the election was stolen from me. I don't understand how anybody can have any confidence in him whatsoever if he doesn't address that issue.
100%. I don't think he needs to get into the details per se.
But I think say that.
But he just has to call it out and separate himself and be like, I want nothing to do with that party. That would be so strong. And to remove himself from the whole thing and let that be a huge part of his campaign.
And I would say, like, on the other side, because if we're going to do this, I'm not just for doing this. I mean, I'm not doing this, but if this is going to be a thing, it needs to happen on both sides. Because, like, I know people who are revolted with the Republican Party, but they're never going to vote. They're not. They think they don't want anything to do with anything that resembles collectivism or socialism or whatever, right?
Of course.
So this is like somebody like a Rand Paul and the Republican Party should also step out and run as an independent or a libertarian or something, even if it's just for the point of calling out the system. He's, kind of thing.
I think it's a great idea, but I think it's less likely to happen because the Republican Party isn't as fractured and full of like lies and deception as the Democratic Party is.
I'm just saying I don't want to push the idea of the only third party candidate should be someone who's breaking off from the left. I think people need to break off from both sides. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, I want us all to get rid of that system. I'm just saying this is where I see it as being more likely. The Republican Party has always been stronger and more organized, so that the stakes are higher for someone to walk away from the Republican Party because they're not as messed up as the Dems. But I completely agree with you. I'm just looking at, and granted, like my point of view of this is very.
Judith, don't lose your mind. Don't lose your mind, Judith. It's okay.
I don't think she watches our show, but
let's tag her this time. We'll tag her this time. You're a star, Judith.
I'm just saying it seems more likely, like it would be a great moment to take advantage of what a disaster the Democratic Party is right now. It does seem like the Republican Party is not as weak and is not as primed for dissolution as much as I would love for them both to just go away.
Yeah, I get it. It's well, the Republicans are just happy because they don't really have to do much anymore. They just have to let Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tweet, and they don't have to do anything else. Like she's basically reelecting Trump with her dumb tweet.
Right.
And
right.
Every time she speaks,
what was the dumb tweet? I only know her dumb Green Deal.
Well, the Green Deal is really dumb, right?
So dumb.
Go look at. She has like so. She like do you hear the whole thing with Amazon? Like, actually, I'm going to say here because he does do good work sometimes, even though I have mixed feelings at him. Go watch Tim Pool's like his last 2 videos about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her stupid thing with the Amazon thing that tried to come to New York. Like Amazon was trying to build a plant or whatever in New York, and they had a deal worked out with the city that would bring like $28 billion to the city over a 5-year period or something like that, right? But they wanted a $3 billion like tax discount while they set all this up, right? Mm-hmm. So bring 27 billion, 3 billion tax discount. Okay, that's 24 billion, right? But Alexandria Ocasio, so this is just my best understanding of it. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez like was part of the movement and led a lot of the stuff to fight, to try and, to try and fight them coming into the city.
Okay.
And ultimately they won. So Amazon's not coming there. Right. So she's very happy that she saved the city $3 billion. She was like, with that $3 billion, we could use that $3 billion to fix the subways, pay teachers. But she didn't understand that giving somebody a discount does not mean you have money in the pocket. Right. So somebody tweeted at her. It's like the funniest thing ever. I wish I should probably bring it up so I can read it exactly. Like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez works at a pizza place, right? And somebody calls in with a $300 order and they say they also have a $10 coupon, right? And she's like, no, we don't take coupons. He's like, okay, well then I'm not ordering. So she hangs up and she goes to her boss, hey boss, I just saved us $10. Can I have a raise?
Yeah. Sounds about right.
So like she doesn't understand economics. Every time she speaks publicly, she gaffes, right? Like it's a mess. And the New Deal crap, right?
Yeah.
So Democrats, like as long as like she's going to be the new face of the Democratic Party, like the new, like, because all these other used to be corporate leftists for some reason are seeing the energy behind her, and they're like, they signed on to the Green New Deal and dumb shit like that, right?
So someone saying, did they read it?
No, it's like Obamacare. You don't read it, you just sign it, right?
Right. Yeah. So creepy.
So, but the point, the Republicans, like, she's the best thing that ever happened to them. She's just going to keep talking and tweeting, and then they don't have to do it. They don't have to spend any money on the campaign.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
I mean, the left is always just a foil for the right. That's been going on for decades. Like they don't they don't understand how the world works.
Well,
they don't understand what they want.
They both foil for one another at different times, right? Like that's how you know is whenever you have an all Republican House and White House, you know, when the Republicans have the White House, the Senate, and the Congress or the House of Representatives, nothing gets done, right? And then they argue about it when it's a split. Right, but when the Democrats have it all, they don't get anything done.
Right,
everything is just a waste time and heard right to left, right to left. It's two wings of the same bird. Not one side is better than the other. It's the same bullshit all the way around.
Yeah, it's totally the same, which is why I want it all to go away. I don't care if it's a righty who brings it down or a lefty who brings it down. I just want us out of it, and I also would like us out from under corporate control. And I don't see anyone else having that conversation. But I've repeated that like 4 times now, so I feel like I'm gonna stop talking.
So when we post this, since you use more Twitter than I do, maybe tag Jimmy Dore and Jordan Sheraton.
Okay.
Because I'd like to hear what they have to say, because I cannot understand why these people are supporting Bernie. And you know what I mean? And if they are going to support Bernie, then they need to support them in the way that you're recommending here. And both of those people are pretty accessible. I think they both live here and they're of moderate success, and so they're still accessible. So maybe we could get some back and forth conversation kind of going.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
But
I mean, I think they're supporting him for the reasons that I just said I'm not going to repeat for the 5th time.
Yeah. Well, but also, like, these are both people who, like, really believe in, like, $15 minimum wage and Medicare for all, and I don't like any of that shit. So
I don't like any of this shit either, but it takes being so far outside the box to, like, we can't have a conversation about pharmaceuticals or Medicare unless we're going to talk about agriculture and food, and these people are not going to be leading that conversation.
No. No, some of the, and that's, I mean, largely, like, all this stuff to me at this point, like, I don't even try and convert anyone to my position anymore, just because it's too exhausting. I just try and mostly ignore all of this. Like, you know, and the part that's funny is, like, I go out of town for 5 or 6 days. I don't look at my phone and I don't look at the TV. None of this shit is happening for me.
Of course.
Right. That's awesome. I encourage everyone to do that, to not pay attention. I think the fastest way for the system to fall is for people to not pay attention to it, not get Twitter pated by it, not get their knickers in a twist about it.
I agree, but it comes down to, like, and also, like, I'm an Aquarius, so I have that, like, devotion to humanity thing. So it's like, I want to help. Like, I want it to be better, you know?
Yeah.
That's all.
I mean, I get it. I guess I just, like, I banged my head hard against the wall for, like, a lot of years. And then I was just like, man, I'm just going to stop. And, like, I don't have a headache anymore. And and nothing else.
We do these shows, so obviously you do care, you know, like, you're making an impact, you're putting the information out. It's just like, you're not into politics, and I get it. Like,
well, I've become better at assessing the situation since I stopped caring, right? Because I don't.
Yeah, because then you're more objective. You're not invested. You can actually see.
It's like I can see the bird's eye view, right?
Totally.
So yeah, so it's interesting. I enjoy having the conversations more than when I was I used to be like a fucking libtard, right? I used to, like, totally. I used to be a libtard. And then, like, you know, but for me, like, I'm a quick mover, and once I recognize something is wrong, it doesn't take me long to, like, unwind the spool of yarn all the way.
Right.
I'm like, you know, I'm like a bored kitten that way.
Right.
Get that shit unwound pretty fast. And I went from having voted to Obama to being a voluntarist in about 3 months.
I did not vote for Obama.
Spent about 7 minutes as a libertarian, you know what I mean? And 7 minutes in the Green Party. And then I was like, oh, this is all bullshit. It's just different layers of bullshit.
I mean, I just want us to be free. Like, for me, it's just about freedom and how many lies are sustaining the great American experiment, which is enslaving everyone and has people really miserable. So as long as I'm here and I'm part of this game, I'd like it to get better.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I like it to get better too. And for me, I just don't think there's going to be a such thing as voting your way to freedom. Like, I think that, like, this system that they put in place where they led people to believe they're free because they have the right to vote is the enslavement.
I mean, I think there's so many levels to the enslavement, but also in this weird way, because I've always poo-pooed patriotism, and I've never been a libtard. especially after 9/11, like I was just so revolted by patriotism. But I do feel this weird, you know, just from having been born here, I do feel a low-level devotion and allegiance to the ideals upon which this country was built. And I do feel like it is a democracy, and we have a responsibility to guide our nation, and everyone's dropping the ball, and we're all dropping the ball. And so there's this, like I said, like, I'm not going to be a politician. It's not high up on my Dharma list, but there's a piece of me that's like, oh, I had this idea. I think this would be smart for Bernie / our country. So can some people with influence take it and run with it?
The level to which I can get behind that is that it would be something to break up the monotony, just the way I found it intriguing that Donald Trump won, because it would like upset the system.
Right.
Even though he's part of the system and he's just as controlled and full of shit as everyone else is, like this, the dropping of the necessity for PC all the time, right? Like, you know, the things that are happening because of his presence, I think are certainly more entertaining than they would have been the other way.
Well, just the level of theater that it is, because it's all just so silly. Like, I just find it, I love that people fall for it. And I love his balls in making such an ass of himself for the sake of the sham. And then the fact that everyone believes it and wastes all their time talking about it. I'm just so entertained by the largesse of the caricature that is our leadership, you know, like, it's such a joke to me. It's so funny to see people buying it.
Well, to see smart people buying it, right? Like the whole, like, you know, it is, I mean, I just don't even know what to say. Like, you know, like, I find myself liking Donald Trump just because it's fun to see, like, you know, my dad and his type of people with like just so Twitter pated by it, right? Like,
yeah, that he has such an effect on people is super intriguing. Like, I had multiple people tell me this whole thing about him lying and saying he's 6'3" when he isn't. Like, multiple intelligent people with a lot to offer, and I'm like, you're talking about this, like, you are giving this, now you're not just giving this story your energy and attention and like alleging that it has veracity, you're spreading it around, you're doing its dirty work for it. It's so in that sense, I'm very intrigued by Donald Trump to have this power and this charisma to be able to control the narrative in this way. It's astounding.
Well, to be able to control a narrative to the point that there has to be an entire industry that is got no other like mission statement than to destroy Donald Trump. Right. That is essentially is what the whole media is, right? Except with almost all the media now exists. I mean, what was that? Did you read that resigning letter from, I think his name was David Arkin, who left the New York Times because he said, I can't no longer be part of a system that is just exists to be against Donald Trump. Like, people who used to be anti-war are now pro-war just because Donald Trump is seemingly sort of anti-war. So now they're pro-war because he's anti-war.
Yeah, right? I mean, the amount of power that he has over people, that so many people are giving their power away like this, is crazy. I did not read that letter, but now I really want to, and I love it.
I'll send it to you when we're done. I'll email it to you when we're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think his name was David Arkin, or it was like in the beginning of January he resigned, and he was an interesting guy, and the letter was exactly right. Like, his, you know, like, I even showed it to my dad, and my dad couldn't argue. But you know, yeah. Okay, so I think we're done exhausting the that Bernie should run political nonsense. So
thank you for
indulging
me with this.
For indulging you.
Yes.
But I do think it's hilarious that my dad said right before we started the exact thing that you're talking about. So that to that point, I agree that for those people who are insistent in staying in this government system, like, why you want to stay enslaved to a two-party system? Like, if I'm going to be like, I want to have, like, when I go to a restaurant, I don't like when there's 2 items on the menu. I want like 20. 40 is too many. They don't do any of them well, but I want like 20.
Yeah, it's so weird. And that's like, I would say, and I'm guessing that most of the people watching are like in our conversation have already drunk the Kool-Aid, but to just pay attention to like that automatic reaction now, people like can't even entertain the possibility of it not being a Republican or a Democrat. Like, yeah, it's crazy.
And then the other thing that I just wanted to say something about real fast, because I think this is another thing that people who still believe in the system, this is a mistake they made. And I don't know, I think you probably know this, but just because of the way it came out, I know you know this. We don't live in a democracy. This is supposed to be a republic that uses a democratic process of voting. But I think part of how people have become enslaved into this two-party system, and you hear this, you hear them on the media and politicians, they never refer to this as a republic, they refer to it as a democracy.
Right.
And a republic is supposed to be based on rule of law, or basically like, we have a constitution and these are the rules. A democracy is like mob rule. So you can change, democracy is like basically the 1% of the 51% basically engages the tyranny. You know what I mean? Like it's mob rule, right? And this isn't supposed to be that. There's not supposed to be any kind of like voting on things that would go against the Constitution. Not that I believe in the Constitution, but I'm just talking about what's supposed to be here. So one of the ways they've mind controlled people into this spot that you're talking about also has to do with confusing them into thinking that like, it's a either for or against kind of system we live in, right?
That's the thing. That's the mindset that I want us to evolve out of, like, immediately. Like, I mean, we're seeing it with like the war on men, and like you can't. It's all over. Yeah. Like, there's so many aspects.
The other thing that almost never gets proposed by anybody with any real traction is the idea of ranked choice voting. So that you could say, well, my first choice is Bernie, and then this person, and then this person. So you're not wasting your vote if the one that you don't want, if you want, doesn't win. So like, let's just say that people really wanted to vote for write-in Bernie, right? They could put Bernie as their first choice and then Hillary as their second, right? So
I like that idea, but it's also half-assed. Like, why can't we just be a country of integrity and a people of integrity and a species of integrity and just put our money where our mouth is, vote for what we believe in? Like, what would our country look like if we weren't just like constantly playing defense and strategizing and second guessing and like just showing up for what we believe to be right and good and true? Like, is that so insane?
No, I mean, it's not insane, but we live in a totally controlled system, so sanity isn't part of that, right?
No, it really
isn't. It's just not. All right, so now on to the pocket universe portion of this. Right, on to the pocket universe portion of the show. So, like, when we decided to do the show, we weren't sure if this was going to be like a regular episode or a special thing. So we didn't have a pre-prepared idea for the pocket universe, but because I was putting makeup on before the show, I think Dani would like to introduce the pocket universe idea for this week.
Right. So my idea for the pocket universe is that women are liberated from the tyranny of makeup, shaving our bikini lines, underpants and bathing suits that don't fit the way our fur grows, all of the nonsense grooming. And it's not to say like we can't do them, but when you texted me that you were going to go put your face on, I was like, oh my God, do we have to do that? The pressure, eek, which by the way, I went to a gravestone unveiling this morning, and I had it in my consciousness like, oh, this is probably the type of thing I should wear makeup for. And then of course, I'm emailing and I'm taking care of 9,000 things, and I'm in the car and I'm on my way and I'm like, shit, that didn't happen, which is always how it is. And so you said you're putting your face on, and I'm like, the pressure, I guess I should do that too. And I go in the bathroom to tackle it, but then I was like, I should clean the sink, I should do other things. And what it always comes down to with me with makeup, aside from the fact that I don't know how to put it on, is there 9 trillion things I would rather be doing with my time. There are all these books I want to read in my lifetime. There are all these conversations I want to be having and all these things I want to be writing. And the last thing I want to be doing is staring in the mirror doing any of this. So in my pocket universe, we're not required to do that. And then, as I said, like, why can I not buy a bathing suit or a pair of underwear that doesn't require serious grooming? Like, that is enslavement of women. It's not whether your razor's pink or your blue, it's why do you have to shave in the first place?
Right. So like on a certain level, I agree with you, but I like wearing makeup and I like getting my nails done. And
do you like wearing it when you're not looking at yourself in the mirror?
Well, I guess what I like is, so I don't wear makeup to like my regular day job. You know what I mean? I wear makeup when I go out socially, and I wear makeup on the air. Not always, like not always, but I like the little sparkle, right? Like, it's fun, right? Like, I like to get, I like to get fancied up. I like to have pretty hands, not because I care what anyone else thinks what my hands look like, but I like what they look like when they look nice, right?
Fair enough.
And
but also that when they look nice, like that's the definition of looking nice. Did you come up with that yourself?
Well, what I think looks nice is sometimes different than what other people think looks nice.
Right.
So like there's things that other people do that I've never gotten into doing with their makeup and their nails and whatever. As for the shaving thing, like it's a hard one to say because like, especially for us, since we came from gymnastics, we were probably shaving younger than most people start to shave because we were in a leotard all the time.
But we weren't pubertying. I wasn't.
Well, I stayed in gymnastics longer.
Right.
You did. And I also have like one of the downfalls or one of the drawbacks of having as much hair as I have on my head is that you're also right? So like for me, like sure, I think wasting shaving time is boring and a waste of time and waxing hurts and all that kind of crap. But ultimately I'm probably more vain than you are. And so, like to me, I see what you're saying, like why the societal expectation, and
just what a time suck it is for women. And like if we add it up throughout the years, like for me it's not what I want to be doing with my time ever.
Yeah.
And like I do shave my legs and I do shave things and it's just annoying. And women's underwear are annoying. Like they go up my ass. They require the grooming. Dudes don't have to deal with that. They just get to like put on their tighty whities or their boxer briefs and move on with their lives. And we're distracted by all this shit.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are some cultures where the men are more adorned than the women, but it tends to be more like tattoos and jewelry, which once they're on, and it's not something that it's kind of
right. You have like your 13 neck rings, and then you live your life. You're not taking them on and off.
Those tribes in Africa where they have the hooks in their back and they like pull, heavy things with those. You know what I'm talking about? Have you seen that?
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That shit's terrifying. Yeah.
I also saw it at a Jane's Addiction concert. Some lady was like hanging from hooks, and I was just trying not to vomit and pass out the whole time.
Yeah. I'm with you on that one. So yeah, I like it is interesting. I appreciate what you're saying, and probably in our pocket universe I'll still wear makeup and shave my life.
I mean, it always comes back to freedom to do whatever we want. There are times where I put on makeup, of course.
Well, you're also graced with looking nice without makeup, right? And for the most part I can get away without wearing makeup and stuff too, so
but that right there, I can get away with it. Like, who's the arbiter of who can get away with it and who can't? Because no dude thinks that they can't get away with it.
It's a very good point. It's a very good point, Dani. Yeah. It's a very
you just said my name in a way that makes me think I'm in trouble.
No, you're not. I mean, there's a large part. I agree with your point, and I like wearing makeup.
I get that you like wearing makeup, and it feels like an area where it's like it's still within the construct, of like who put this on us in the first place. It's like bras and underwire and like. Ugh.
When I go on vacation, I don't generally wear makeup. If we go out for dinner, I might, but I'll spend all day, most of the week. I don't wear it to my day job, so I don't feel enslaved to it the way I know. I know some women like who wear makeup every time they leave the house.
Yeah.
There's people who tell me that they think I look more attractive without makeup. You know what I mean? And like I do spend.
Everyone in my life tells me that. Anytime I put it on, they're like, take it off.
So
bless you.
Thank you. So yeah, I think it would be nice to live in a society where there wasn't that kind of expectation and people just did what they wanted to do. And, dudes want to wear makeup. Sure. Whatever. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
It's just like to get us out of this assumption that like, oh, well, when I want to look nice, why that means looking nice. Like it was such a big deal when Frances McDormand didn't wear makeup to the Academy Awards. No guys were wearing makeup. I mean, they might've had their dumb, like, I don't actually know.
The foundation on. Yeah.
Yeah. But like this assumption that we have to is going to go away in the pocket universe. If anyone wants to, that's fine. But as far as like a time, energy, genius, dharma suck, that's what all of that is. Like even like just bathing suit shopping. It's so annoying because I swim at the Y. So it keeps me, I'm constantly having to shave to be able to wear my dumb Speedo. I just want to live my life. Like, but it would take the whole apparel industry to jump on board, you know? And like, yeah, I mean, I could go on the whole thing, like with thongs and all the crazy stuff that women are into. But in the pocket universe, I just want us to be liberated. If someone wants to, that's fine. But like, we need to question the larger like meta narrative that has us equating looking nice with putting shit on our eyelashes.
Yeah, no, I think that these are good points, and it is fascinating how we got here. And yeah, I mean, in the pocket universe, I mean, this is the one thing is I think people should probably ask themselves is how much of your time that you could be doing other things do you spend doing this stuff that, especially if you don't want to be doing it, if you're doing it because you feel it's expected of you, or like you have to, or you're not going to be okay without it or accept that, then you need to ask yourself that question and have give some serious thought to it. Yeah.
I mean, I also do think it's a major distraction that keeps women from having as much of an impact as we can. And you know me, I'm not one to play the like marginalized woman card, but like it is crazy how much time women spend looking in the mirror and getting gussied up instead of changing the world for the better.
Yeah, I can't argue with you. I can't argue with you.
Can I quote you on that?
Yeah, I can't argue with your point. And I like wearing makeup.
I'm glad you like it, and you look beautiful, and it warms my heart that you're such a girly girl. It's so endearing. And this wouldn't even be coming up if I didn't feel like I was dropping the ball, because I didn't. I just couldn't. I didn't want to deal.
Yeah. I get you. So every once in a while, I don't want to deal either. I'm just like, it's no makeup tonight. And, when I do that. But then you're right. Sometimes when that happens, I apologize to the audience, and that's ridiculous.
Right. But the whole time, like when I am doing it and I'm looking in the mirror, the entire time that I'm doing that, I'm like, I'm wasting my time. There are 9,000 things I'd rather be doing. And like, just the act of doing it is like existential mind fuckery. And like, I'm losing the earth game because I'm doing something that I don't want to be doing.
Well, I think that's the bigger point there is all of us when we're doing something. I mean, sure, there's things we have to do to take care of ourselves that we don't want to do, like laundry and dishes and things like that, right? But aside from the very basics, I think that's the bigger thing, whether it's about makeup or not makeup, is how much of your day do you spend doing things you don't want to do?
Right.
And the point of your life or when you start to become aware, start to become conscious of stuff, I think that should be the main point. That should be the goal, is to get to spend as much of your time doing things that you like doing, that you're good at doing, and that are good for both you and for others, right? So I think
Amen.
that is more it's really more that than whether it's about makeup or shaving or whatnot, right? And then also, I never ever just put on makeup or whatever. I'm always at least listening to something, in something information wise or whatever. So if I find myself just like for a long time staring in the mirror with nothing else going on, then I'm like, yeah, this is a fucking waste of time, and it's irritating too.
Yeah. Plus for me, like the whole time it's on my face, I'm like, I can't touch my face. I can't act normal. Like obviously I'm not a makeup person.
And you're not normal, so I don't know what the whole thing doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it pretty much doesn't.
All right, guys. I've enjoyed indulging the conversation for the last hour, and I hope you all enjoyed it. And I'm sure that there'll be some, disagreements. And I need to address one thing.
The Madonna shirt?
An awful lot of comments about my Madonna shirt. And so, in the last episode. And so it's actually interesting because I have that, there was a time when I wouldn't have worn the Madonna shirt on the air. But I like Madonna's music. And part of the reason I wear it is because it is an acknowledgement of some of the programming that I have been through and that I have worked through. And part of working through that is being able to enjoy it just as music again. I don't think she's a wonderful person. I also don't think she's any more terrible of a person than anybody else. She's got a dark side and a light side like everybody. You know what I mean? Like, she does some gross shit. But she also made some good songs, and it's impossible. What if we are, going to completely deny things that have had an effect on us in our life and not wear shirts because this person, has some conspiracy, or that person, or all that kind of crap, then we're just going to be left with, nothing to like, nothing to enjoy. So I fully acknowledge that she is a tool of the system, and like some of her songs. I like the t-shirt too. And everyone is like, that's a really cool t-shirt. And so I can't remember what his tag was, but there was one guy, something Nibiru, who just was like really all over the shirt.
Yeah, but people called him out for being out of line with that.
But yeah, I get it. There was a time, like in my, truth and awareness process, where I would have been like this. That would have probably been just as ridiculous, right? I'm not calling you ridiculous, Nibiru. I understand. And yeah, I like some Madonna songs though.
I love that you wore that shirt. It tickled me the entire show.
All right, so that's a wrap for this week. And Dani, where can I find you?
www.danicats.com. Follow me everywhere. Subscribe to my newsletter, my YouTube channel, and have a good day.
And you can find me at offplanetradio.com. Our YouTube channel is Off Planet Media. And if you are interested in a nutrition or lifestyle consultation, hit me up at Facebook, Emily Moyer. We'll see you next time. Bye, guys. Have a good one. All righty. Cool.